And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk. Spartan State and Michigan State. What's the score, Paul? 23-6, something like that? We got Paul Konyndyk here, associate editor, SpartanMag.com. My name's Jim Comparoni, SpartanMag.com. Michigan State's 1-0. They're going to the Rose Bowl, Paul. Is the Rose Bowl still a thing? Do they still play the Rose Bowl?
Yeah,
That's still a thing.
You wonder, right? But
Michigan State, they're 1-0. Did some good things, have some stuff to work on. You know, the engine sputtered here and there a little bit, but first half that run game looked good, Paul.
Yeah, and the one thing I wrote about is I got a bunch of texts, and I know that you guys are thinking it too after watching some of the MAC scores against Big Ten and some of the way some of the Big Ten schools sputtered. You know, Nebraska didn't look great against Cincinnati like last night.
No. That's a winnable game, by the way. Winnable game.
So you're looking at, well, it is for this week.
I mean, Michigan State at Nebraska.
I agree.
For this week, yeah.
I'd love to talk to you about that off camera because I'm not a big fan of Holgerson. But anyways, you see all the scores early, and it looks like all of a sudden you start thinking, well, this could happen to Michigan State too because we've seen it in the past. And I thought Western that quarterback, that first one, that Colby Jones or whatever his name is. That guy can throw the football. He can throw it accurately, and both those guys get rid of the football quick, and they've got some running ability. I think those guys are going to be just fine in the MAC with what I saw from them in terms of some of the things they have going on. But Michigan State did some really good things in this game, and they could have easily won by a lot more than they did. And I think it still would have looked better if it was 23-0. And so that pick six late in the game, which really didn't mean a whole lot, other than to those who gambled on this game, which I'm not one of them, but. I think Michigan State, I feel a whole lot better coming out of this game if I'm a Michigan State fan. I feel like I know this Michigan State team a lot more now than I did coming out of that Florida Atlantic game last year. I felt like that was an actual egg being laid. I felt in this game, because of the way the defense played resiliently and because of the way Michigan State actually ran the football and did so efficiently and really pushed them off the line of scrimmage, I felt good about this game overall. If I had seen Michigan State struggle to run the ball, if I had seen breakdowns in run blocking where there is like serious errors where people are shooting gaps and getting and the run plays weren't working, I'd feel bad. I'd feel a lot worse about this game than I do. I think the run blocking thing, which we've been talking about from the start of training camp until now, being a huge question mark, they really had a momentum type game that they can carry forward. Now, are you going to get 8 yards? Are you going to get two running backs averaging 7 yards per carry against the Boston College or against Big Ten teams? No, I don't think so. But I think you can build on it, and I think you can get push, and I think they've got good run blocking. They have gotten better in that area of the game.
Yeah, Michigan State, like I said, sputtered a little bit, but first half, Michigan State beat the hell out of a sparring partner. Sparring partner came in, they beat the hell out of them in an area that they needed to show some improvement over last year, like you're saying. That's great.
It's got legs, man. That's more than just shooting 3-pointers and getting lucky like in basketball.
That's better than like averaging 2.9 per carry, but connecting on 3 or 4 deep passes, and then you don't get the pick six and you win 28-0. It might look better, but you didn't actually, like when it comes to meat and potatoes and rubber meets the road and all those cliches, wouldn't have meant as much. But the run game showing some traction. And they didn't do this against the 85 Bears, but the run game, Mekhi Frazier looked quicker than I expected. I knew he's kind of like a north and south guy, but he had some little, maybe not home run speed, but he had short area sprint to him.
And I don't think that Western was playing the way they play defense. They're not playing defense in a way that's going to take risks and give you home runs. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of openings for the. I mean, they had their defensive backs were back there. They weren't giving you big plays. And,
I thought with the way Tate Hallett can support the run, and they have some decent, rotund defensive linemen. Last year they lost a couple, but they had some coming in. I thought run defense for Western Michigan might be the most the thing that they would do that represented that represented best for Western. I thought Western would be pretty good in that area. And for Michigan State to come out and average 7.0 per carry for those two tailbacks, whatever it was, that's not a small thing.
Yeah, and I feel like they would have had more running yards if they had stuck with those two tailbacks from start to finish. I feel like there was some times like late in the game when Tau Tolliver was in there, where it was really blocked up well, and he would get 4 yards a carry. And I kept on thinking to myself, well, it's taking him a long time to get started. Yeah. If you had a Mekhi Frazier in there who's really quick with his cuts, the one thing I would say is he might not have the home run ability, but he's got very efficient running. So lateral quickness going from here to there, and he like that first cut and then go. It's really impressive, and he's got some balance and power to him. But I think the first running play of the game, I thought initially when I was starting to write down like a gain of 4 or whatever in my notebook. And then they said then I looked at where the official spotted the ball, and I'm like, dang, that offensive line, it's an 8-yard gain. And I thought that's pretty impressive. We saw that over and over and over again. And it wasn't just the offensive line. I thought some tight ends did a good job. I thought the fullback did a good job.
They did They did a lot of I formation, a lot of under center, a lot of fullbacks rather than 2 tight ends. A lot of fullback personnel group, a lot.
They did.
It's a big difference from last year. I don't know if they'll do that every single week. I doubt Western was necessarily expecting 2 back.
And some of that stuff was a little bit delayed. There's it was just like the running backs are patient, and I don't know if they got some other stuff and they'll go with it next week. I think I don't think they were like super elaborate in this game in terms of what they did. But
go ahead.
When they're talking about being light years ahead of where they were as an offense, you could see that today. It's not like they threw out the kitchen sink at Western just to try to get a good running amount. I feel like these are all plays that they are comfortable with. They've repped quite a bit, but I can see that in reality on the field that they are actually significantly ahead of where they were last year in terms of the playbook and what they're doing.
Yeah, and they had different groupings of plays that Michigan State really established. Like the beginning of the game, a lot of those now routes. Those were somewhere like wide receiver screens, but not really screens, just now routes. Quick. There's the 3rd and 2. They get that one out to Jack Velling, and he gets a first down. 3 or 4 of those. Then they started hammering outside zone, and a lot of it was to the right side. Right side, a lot of times to the boundary, hammering that. Then they came back later, like on the second drive, and like doing play action off of that, and getting into some out routes, and just kind of, and like the coaches said, they weren't sure what Western was going to do on defense. They wanted to do a few things and then make some adjustments off of that. But different families of plays a little bit, conventional things, but there was some competence to it. And I thought Aidan Chiles made some good decisions. He had some where he messed up a couple things in some run plays. But I really liked this one play when it was like a 1st and 10, and I think they're coming on a corner blitz, and he was scrambling, and instead of like trying to force something, he just threw it away. It was 1st and 10. And then a couple plays later, they ended up scoring on that drive. But rather than thinking he needed to try to thread a needle every single play, discretion is a better part of valor. Threw it away, came back on 2nd down, ended up, scoring on that drive, and that showed some of his experience on that particular play. There were some other ones. There was they ran like a counter it was kind of like a zone read option, but it wasn't zone blocking. It was counter, so it was like a counter read option, and he kept it and lost like 4 yards. I don't know what he was reading. I suspect he may have made a wrong read on that. A couple plays like that where I think he'll probably look back and critique himself in areas where he can get better, because the run game for him overall personally was good. That 3rd down play when they ran a designed quarterback keeper with a running back lead on that, and he got loose for 26 yards down the sideline to the 9-yard line. That's a nice thing to have to call on 3rd down. You don't want to ask your quarterback to be carrying the freight like that all the time, but 3rd down situations, he can make a defense. It can be a headache when you have to prepare for that also. So there was a lot of the variety of Aidan Chiles. I thought there was some good stuff there with him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and he didn't throw a pick today. That's progress. Michigan State didn't go for they didn't really have a lot of explosives. Today but there wasn't really a lot there. It's not like
Smith grumbled about that. Michigan State, for all the completions they had, they did not have a pass for more than 14 yards going into the 4th quarter.
But he felt like, and I agree with him, that there were some times when they could have had explosives, that it was a pass pro problem. And I think if you want to look at the negative for Michigan State in this game, it was pass protection. There's 55 yards lost in this game. A lot of those were on sacks.
4 sacks.
And then there was that late in the game where Michigan State was driving, and then there's that there's a strip sack. And
that was a running back, Tullis, not picking up an edge blitzer. I think it was a corner blitz. So that was not on the offensive line, but 4 sacks. There was one sack where I think it was a coverage sack where Chiles could have gotten rid of it. There was one where I I think it was Connor Moore was over at left tackle. He's a starting right tackle, but he was playing left tackle for a series or two. And he was kind of getting beat to the outside, but he was kind of pushing him out there. But Chiles, instead of at his point or his drop back point, Chiles tried to escape and actually dropped back to where Moore was pushing his man out. Now, I'd have to look at it again. I think there might have been some pressure up the middle that caused Chiles to get out there. So it might not have, I think Moore might have been okay, but someone would, the replays are tough timing-wise. We're trying to watch the game. You guys at home, you can rewind it. You're watching it real time.
There's a big delay.
There's a big delay, so the TV feed that we get is like 20 seconds after the play is done. So
if you end
it's
up
not your problem, but I with the feed today, had a real hard time getting a second and third look at all the plays. So I don't know what happened interior. That might have been an offensive line problem, but maybe not necessarily more. Then there was another sack where Stanton Ramil was out there, and I thought Stanton Ramil had his guy blocked, and Brocious at left guard was looking to find work because he had he had nothing in his area. So he goes and puts a helmet on this guy and ends up knocking that guy loose, free of Ramil, and he goes and gets a sack. I think if Brocious doesn't touch him, I think Ramil's got him. So it's not like situations where guys are just like getting beat, and you wouldn't expect Western Michigan to have great pass rushers, but it's correctable things. I didn't think the pass rush overall was bad, but those 55 yards definitely counted.
Yeah, and I think Stanton Ramil, if you want to look
Pass
at the guy
protection.
that did it, I think overall he did a great job in pass protection. I think Stanton Ramil was quick, and I do think those Western Michigan defensive linemen, especially the defensive ends, they're a lot better than they expected to be at that position. If you listen to Lance Taylor's press conference earlier this week, he was talking about the one area that he was really surprised about, or that really pleasant, that makes him feel good about the season. He was saying the defensive ends, and that's something. Sometimes you get lucky in the transfer portal, and I feel like they've got some players. Now the other thing is too that there's not a lot of film on scheme or personnel, like when you've got some of these guys coming in, because you bring in junior college guys, and Western's got quite a few of them, which is increasingly rare. But I think it's smart for Western to do that because there's more. They can get guys like the quarterback that they couldn't get in the past. Because of the transfer portal, there's more available JUCO guys, and that guy is really good, but there's only so much film you have on it, and scheme-wise, it's tough to prepare for a coordinator who's never called a game before.
And Jake Loscavo was talking about that at the Lance Taylor press conference. The guy, he transferred in from Houston. I had no idea who he was. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to research who their transfers were because I didn't know who was going to be playing and so forth. But that one guy was a legit pass rusher, and that was a good look for Michigan State. Michigan State didn't play a complete terrible team. They played a team that had some guys that would challenge you in some ways, threw some nice deep balls. I expected Western's offense to be a little bit better. They came out and I think they had 217 yards of offense. But how much of that was Michigan State's defense really playing a great game? We'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, as you know, Paul, Michigan State's recycling rate has fallen 90% to 73% in recent years. This is a message from Shupan. You guys know that. Michiganders are squandering $105 million per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. That's hurting our environment, ladies and gentlemen. So help your environment. Help yourself. They're your beaches, your lakes, your roads. So take them back. Take them back. A message from Shupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to the Michigan State Spartans. Take those bottles and cans back. And thanks to Shupan for supporting SpartanMag.com also. So defense for Michigan State. It was they didn't give up any points. I think the deepest drive was 26 yards in that opening drive when they hit the 35-yarder against Joshua Eaton early on. I thought his feet were there. It was a well-placed ball and a good catch. They hit 3 deep shots against Michigan State. Nothing enormously deep, but 3 deep ones. All 3 times I thought the feet got the defensive backs there. We weren't seeing guys just getting blown, wide open, and we didn't see any major busts in pass defense. There was the one on the 4th down play where it was like Western had it like 4th and 12. They completed for about 11 yards and was short of the sticks. On that one, they kind of left a receiver open, and I think it was Ade Willie was in the area. He made the tackle. Santiago came over and actually made the tackle. Willie hit him initially and I think missed the tackle. That was the only time when I saw someone kind of getting left open. You didn't see like the DBs getting undressed like we saw a lot in the last 3 years. So same pageness was pretty good. I don't know if that was a great defensive effort against a good offensive team. I don't know enough about Western Michigan. I expected Western to be a little more dangerous with the offense. Their run game was was respectable last year with Buckley coming back. I thought that might be a little bit of a problem, but Michigan State really stopped the run and did some good things on defense.
Yeah, I think Western doesn't work well as an offense if they're not running the football. You can tell what they want to do.
1.2 yards per carry for
You know,
Western.
Lance Taylor's a former running backs coach. That's kind of his bread and butter. I think last year you saw what they wanted to do. They were very good running the football, especially in the MAC. It's one of the reasons why they finished 5-3 in the MAC. I think Jalen Buckley's a hell of a player, and I think and Michigan State Michigan State really worked hard to stop that run. I felt like linebacker play was really good. I thought Jordan Hall. He got it. I mean, there's a lot of guys gumming up things. Like, you got good penetration here, and then when there was good penetration by the defensive line or a linebacker, then there was guys in other position to make plays. I felt like tackling, in the first game, it was very crisp, for Michigan State in terms of, there wasn't a lot of guys escaping, and that's rare. And
I can't think of one.
No, and that's what I'm trying to think in my head.
I'm sure there might have been, but I can't.
And that play that you mentioned, like where Santiago, he saved that, but that was great hustle. He came a long ways to make that play.
How much of that is a rotation? Those guys are all competing for playing time, and you can't have any loafs on tape because you will lose reps if you get a loaf here and there. Plus, if you're rotating a lot, you're going to have more in reserves, more fuel. And I wonder with him being able to rally to that play on fourth down, how much of that is because they're rotating a lot of guys there?
Yeah, but the rotation is not easy either because you got a lot of traffic control. You got every time. Western made a substitution. Michigan State subbing a bunch of guys in there, and there were at times where it was frantic, and it was like Jordan Hall was trying to get guys on and off the field and whatnot, and it's not.
It's not frantic as long as they sub. If they sub, you've got all the time in the world.
You do, but you don't. I mean, there's times where you've got time to do it, but it's still like
the officials holding. If you sub, the official's going to hold until you make your changes. And State was changing a lot of guys.
But there are some times where guys aren't sure if they're supposed to be coming off the field. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can make the change, but until you do this in a game scenario, until you get comfortable repping, as many personnel groups as Michigan State did, it can get chaotic out there.
That's one of the strange things about college football and the rules right now, that if you sub on offense, the defense, it's kind of a gray area as to how much time they're allotted. And like if the defense is like taking their own sweet time, all right, you changed one guy, all right, we're changing 7 guys. And we're going to go slow. Oh, the play clock's down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's screw the dealer. Screw the offense. They got to call timeout.
But I don't think,
it depends on the officiating crew.
Things tend to favor offenses, and I can see, like, if it becomes a deal where you're on tape and you're a defense and you're taking your sweet old time and that type of thing, it's going to hurt you because they're, they will talk to the officiating crew ahead of time and say, hey, this is what this team does. They're stalling.
Yeah,
and then it's going to be a problem. But
I don't know enough about it to know how that's handled between coaches and officials. It's a new thing in football, college football these days.
I do like it. I do like it that you have time to substitute. That said, if you have time to substitute, you got your guys in there, but is everyone going to get lined up, like the way they need to? I thought
Michigan State blew a timeout at the beginning of the second half.
But I think like Michigan
Smith
State
was not happy about that.
They really rotated a lot of guys. I mean, they went heavy with the rotation. So for Michigan State to pitch a shutout with rotating as many guys as they did, I think that was impressive. But it was also impressive on the part of whoever's making the calls on the field, whoever's like a Jordan Hall. I thought he did a really good job with traffic control out there today. And Wayne Matthews. Both those linebackers played really well today.
A couple of bright kids, and they've got some depth behind them. Michigan State blowing that timeout, that was because Michigan State had a certain defensive personnel group they wanted to have when the backup quarterback, Brock Lowry, when he came into the play, he's more of a runner. When he went on the field, then Michigan State had Samaj Bridgman automatically as the nickelback. So to begin the second half, Lowry was out there. So Bridgman heads up to him, runs on the field because he knows he's part of the package. But Ade Willie ran on the field too. He's the usual nickelback. So Michigan State had 12 on the field. That's why Michigan State blew a timeout, and Smith wasn't happy about that. Michigan State had a very buttoned-up, clean, crisp first half. That was a little bit of a mistake there, obviously. But it also speaks to the depth that Michigan State has, that they had different players in different packages for different looks that Western had. All kinds of players on defense were getting some playing time. And Quindarius Dunnigan getting a start ahead of Jalen Thompson. Dunnigan, you've been hearing, he lost 17 pounds. He's playing quicker. offensive coaches were like, I've never seen him that quick before. They said that in the spring. He's voted captain, and it was making you wonder exactly what his role was going to be. You knew he'd be at least splitting time with Jalen Thompson, and turns out he started ahead of Jalen Thompson. And Dunnigan made a tackle for loss on a play, one gap and getting in there in the backfield that helped stall a drive. Dunnigan did some good stuff tonight.
It's interesting because they're both listed as starters. There's like 12 defensive starters listed at the 12 or 13 defensive starters to start this game.
Yeah, technically they weren't.
Right, I get it, but it depends on what your personnel is. I think And
Jalen Thompson gets a safety on that one. He's kind of unblocked coming off the edge. Michigan State bringing a run blitz up the middle, and they're kind of wedge blocking, and all their personnel was inside, and Thompson comes in, gets him on the ground. Van Sumeren had some penetration there also. Got a safety, almost had 2 safeties in the game. So the defense, sound, square, tackling, covering, I thought, and not against the greatest offense in the world, but occasionally good pass rush, and more importantly than anything, really stopping that run, stuffing that run with a lot of inside linebackers playing. Marcellius, Pulliam played, and Pretzlaff played, and then Bridgman played a little bit. Snow played a little bit. So a lot of guys getting in there. Defensive line was good. Satchel was not available today. We didn't see Ruquan Buckley a lot. Not a lot, but
he's the guy that's been a little bit dinged up coming out of training camp, and I think he's getting back into it.
So it was Roberts and Van Sumeren were getting a lot of minutes in there, doing some good stuff on defense. The corners, it was mainly Malcolm Bell and Joshua Eaton. And second half, when they went to the bench, it was Aiden West and Chance Rucker. Those guys did not rep as much as the defensive tackles and linebackers did. It was like fourth quarter once the game was kind of at hand when those second-string corners got in the game, which surprised me a little bit. I thought that maybe the second-string corners were closer than those starters. But they probably want to get the starters out there, the starting corners, both of whom are transfers. They probably wanted to get them more and more acclimated with Malik Spencer back there.
And that tells you how much they like Joshua Eaton, because I think Chance Rucker is a good player. He's a guy that has a lot of experience, and he didn't do anything wrong today. He made a couple plays. He looked good on special teams. And
those backup corners played well.
And so, it's a good thing. That's another deal where it's good to have that kind of depth. And when they brought in those defensive backs from the transfer portal, that's one of the things they wanted. They wanted competitive depth back there because they got burned by not having enough of it last year.
So the offense went dead there in the second half a little bit. I was kind of writing a little bit about exactly what went wrong there. The old bugaboo about negative plays on 1st and 10, that kind of crept back up and bit them a little bit. But ironically, I thought 3 of Aidan Chiles' best plays came during that one drive in the second half when they got down there, and he ended up having that strip sack. He completed a pass for 21 yards on 3rd and 12, and he was flushed. And he found Omari Kelly over the middle on a dig, gain of 21. And then a few plays later, 3rd and 1 at the 38. They're looking to go deep at the 38. And if they throw an incompletion, I'm guessing they're coming back just going for it on 4th down. So 3rd and 1 was a deep pass. I thought that was kind of interesting. They went deep and ended up finding kind of a check down with Krishan McCray on an over route for 28 yards. 2 plays later, little play action boot out to Masunis, the tight end. He breaks a couple tackles, gains 13 yards. So gain of 21, gain of 28, gain of 13. That's 62 yards for Aidan Chiles. And that was pretty much all the offense in the second half was those 3 plays on that one drive. And for Chiles, prior to that, he only had about 90 yards passing. Midway into the fourth quarter, you went in a blowout, and he had 90 yards passing. Like Smith said, the completion rate was good, but you want to average more yards per pass attempt. Michigan State yards per pass attempt, not great today. Chiles was okay and accurate on some 3rd downs, out routes, intermediate stuff, but in terms of downfield, Michigan State didn't probe that a whole lot.
Yeah, they didn't. I really didn't feel like they had a lot of openings.
Smith said they looked for it, and they had it, like you said earlier, they had some openings, but on those particular plays, pass protection might have broken down. They did draw a pass interference on a deep pass, which was a little bit of a gadget. They had Nick Marsh set up like he was going to block on a wide receiver screen, then he released deep, and that's why he got held. So they were hunting for a few of those deep ones, but you never saw Chiles miscued deep on a scramble situation when he had the running back leaking out. That was kind of a scramble rules freelance thing. And Tullis didn't do a great job tracking that ball. He overthrew him a little bit. But Tullis initially was in for pass protection, then kind of leaked out. That play became backyard. But Chiles, a couple of deep ones he kind of missed.
That play, you can't expect a running back to make a catch like that in a freelance situation. I mean, maybe an NFL tailback, but we're talking
maybe Tolliver.
Maybe no, because he can only run a few routes. I don't see him doing that. And it's one of those deals where like you run specific routes as a running back. That was a weird type of deal. I think it
was a scramble rules leak out.
But I think that Aidan Chiles should have run the ball there. And that to me was the problem. You know, he should have run there. He didn't pick his spot.
Would have been a gain of about 15 or so running, it looked
exactly.
like.
And that's something that, you know, he was looking for a big play instead of a scramble, and he should have run it. I just don't think that's something you want your running, you know, that your running back is going to make.
Or he could have thrown it more accurately.
He could have.
Easy for me to say.
He could have, but you're throwing on the run, and you're you know, and it's
which he does once in a while.
He does, but I'm just saying, you're trying to think and process in your mind of whether you should run it or throw it. You should be running it, and then you decide to throw it. So it's like one of those deals where
dude was uncovered.
I get it.
Now, not that I'm saying Tolliver deserves more playing time as a ball carrier. He's not as good as those other two. But the one thing he does well is catch the ball. Maybe he would have pulled that one in. Later, there's a third down incompletion. Chiles did a good job 4 or 5 times going to the wide side of the field on some of those, and then he went to Evan Boyd, who was in the game late, and it went off his face mask, which was not a good look. The ball was right there. That should have been first down. So some of the offensive failures in the second half, that was a third down. Quarterback makes a play, nice guy runs a route, good play call open, and a receiver doesn't receive it.
Have you heard at any point during training camp? I know Tyler put up a lot of receiving yards
last year.
Have you heard at any point during training camp them rave about him and a receiver? It's always been in relation to him being asked about his receiving yards because he put him up there. You know, when I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, he was saying one of the toughest things for him in the transition is that Michigan State runs a lot of different routes. He's used to running like when he was at Sac State, he's just running 3 basic routes out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. So I get what you're saying in terms of, he's got a lot of receiving yards, but those are in a very constricted type of
I would just say that
like a swing route,
yeah.
Like a little.
I would just say on that particular play with the ball in the air, he would have tracked it better than Tullis.
I just still think that's a run all the way for Chiles. I think given what he had there right there, but it's like one of those things where you got to make a decision, and I think he made the wrong one, but you got to run. You got to do what you got to do with it.
He had 3 or 4 passes tonight that just kind of got away from him a little bit. He needs to secure those a little bit as he looks to improve. And he's his own toughest critic. Maybe not the toughest, but he's self-aware.
Did he start out 12 for 14? I thought like some of those passes, like last year, I can think of some of those passes, those quick passes out to Omar Kelly that were so effective. I could think of a lot of those that he would have overthrown last year when there's other guys out there that were basically simple passes that you expect a guy to make, but his footwork was wrong, or maybe his eyes got too big, and because the guy was too open and he missed it completely. So I do think accuracy-wise, he was better in the first half of this game than he's been than other games that we've seen him last year, and that quick passing stuff doesn't work unless you have accuracy.
Sure.
And I think that was something to me that I saw that I felt like really good about what he did in the first half that he can build on.
Yeah, Smith was a little bit critical of Chiles, saying there's some times when, on a drop back, his eyes have to make sure his eyes are in the right place and then the progressions are going correctly. Meaning that when they weren't, a couple times it might have led to some of those sacks. So there's still more to work on. But like Aidan Chiles said himself, he said, did you think I looked different than the opener last year? And everyone's like, yes. And he said, yeah, and I felt better too.
Yeah, he felt more comfortable. I don't know the exact words that he used for this, but he felt like he had control of this game. Yeah. And I think that's a good place to start, where he felt like he controlled the offense and he had, that he knew what he was doing. There wasn't too many times where he changed. Changed like a direction of a run play or anything like that. But he did.
We don't know for sure.
But he did. There were a few times where he obviously made checks at the line of scrimmage.
But some of those are fake checks, so it's always hard to know.
But he looked at like better operating.
Yes.
And like when he talked, guys listened to him. He had command. It was his offense. He had the keys. It wasn't driver's training.
And some of those passes over the middle, and some were third down situations. Omari Kelly early on found him on a nice square, and then later on was inaccurate and thrown behind him, and Omari Kelly goes and makes the snag on that. Omari Kelly we've heard he's been playing really well all spring and all preseason. Tonight was a very good possession receiver and helped them move the chains. And Chiles was very comfortable looking for number one out there. Nick Marsh had the touchdown on that mesh concept in the red zone. And Chiles got some pressure on that one and threw off his back foot and had a nice touch on that one. But Marsh, pretty much a quiet game, and you don't want that to become something that happens week after week. Bullard, they went deep. They tried to get him going once or twice, but that still could come around.
There was a wide receiver run where I think he made the wrong read on that. I don't know if he tripped, but I thought he should have cut earlier than he did. But these are all those are type of things where they've got to get comfortable. Krishan McCray, he had one catch tonight. I think they've got more at receiver than we saw. I think even a guy like Evan Boyd, embarrassing the one going off the face mask, but they like him and they think he can do some things. Nick Marsh is going to get some attention, but what we didn't see from Nick Marsh, we didn't see him line up in the slot. We didn't see him moving around a whole lot. We didn't see a lot of motions and those type of things. So I would be surprised if Nick Marsh becomes more involved as the season goes on. And I don't think Michigan State. If you talk to Nick Marsh and what he said, he knows that he's going to be more of a focal point for defenses, and he knows that these guys are going to punish. These other guys can have the ability to punish the way defenses play him. He's just got to take advantage of the opportunities that he gets, and I think he did on that touchdown pass. But he is going to create openings for other receivers. Omari Kelly was very open today. A lot had to do with the focus that was on Nick Marsh, the focus that was on some of the tight end plays or the direction of the running plays that Michigan State was running. So Nick Marsh can still make a play when he's not getting the ball. And yeah, you want to make him happy. I don't think he had a bad game. I thought that was a good touchdown. He caught some tough passes. I think he's going to get more involved as the season goes on. But it's going to be interesting to see if they move him around more, because that's the talk about it. But why put all that on tape right now?
Yeah, and Jonathan Smith was asked if they did, withhold a few things, and Smith's answer was not in the second half. He said not in the first half. I'm sorry. He said not in the first half. So in the second half, did they have things that they throttled back a little bit to not have Marsh in different areas? Maybe so. So we'll keep an eye on that heading toward Boston College. Michigan State's pass rush showed a pulse, but they did last year in the first two games as well. But Anello Lafayette coming in, the transfer from Wisconsin, turning the corner and getting that strip sack fumble on his first play as a collegiate football player. That's the guy Chad Wilt, the rush ends coach, was saying 2 weeks ago, is a guy that has juice. Saw a little bit of there, and he was fired up. Dunnigan had an impact, and also some of the blitzes got home with the linebackers. But we didn't see Isaac Jones necessarily. You can't get sacks from everybody.
He started the game, right?
Yes, Santiago's in there a little bit. But pass rush, affected the quarterback a little bit. Not like they ransacked everything, but
it came from a lot of different areas. It wasn't the rush end continuously putting pressure on there. I thought Michigan State's interior did some good things. I thought Michigan State's linebackers, like Jordan Hall was pretty active and he was in the backfield. But these guys weren't, when they were out there, they weren't bad. I mean, they made plays. We saw I think some tipped balls this year that were. There's some tip balls in that first half, especially from the defense. I'm not sure if there's going to be. They've got a lot of different pieces. There's not going to be like one, I think, really dynamic guy. I think the sack showed the future in terms of how do you say his name again?
Anello Lafayette.
Yeah, I mean I
think that's how it is.
He's got some horsepower and I think he's good, but we didn't see him get touched. Like a guy like that, he's pretty undersized, 220. So Santiago showed some range out there running around, and Smith's got some power. I don't think there's going to be one guy there's not a 10-sack guy in this team.
No,
there just isn't. I don't think
not this year. Lafayette in the future, maybe.
Maybe, but not this year. And
10 is a lot.
But I don't think Michigan State hasn't had a guy like that. I'm saying maybe not an 8-sack guy, maybe not a 5-sack guy. At that rush end position.
5 that's kind of what they need.
I mean,
Now-
they need a Drew Beasley, who's good for six to 8 sacks, but they're not. I don't think they're going to get that. If they can get that from multiple guys pooling together, and they can get it from other ways, that would be good. But I do think that there were times where, the pass rush was there. It didn't always generate sacks, and those guys got the ball out quick. So they weren't hanging on to it. But there were a lot of pressures. There were multiple times where there were, intentional grounding, and that's pretty good indication of a pass rush going on. And I do feel like those quarterbacks were off their places. And
Yes.
I felt like, I know in those first couple games last year that Michigan State had sack numbers. I felt like they had a better pass rush in this game.
Yes.
And both of those quarterbacks are mobile, and they're hard to bring down. The second quarterback is, I expected them to have more running yards just because that second quarterback is not only able to run. The first one, too, he can run as well. Not only able to run, but he's also physical. And Michigan State had no issues with any kind of physicality. You didn't see Michigan State run defenders getting pushed back.
No.
And that's a really good sign, because there's a lot of times, even good run defenses, there's times where you get pushed back. These guys were stoning people and dropping them immediately.
And Western has a few new offensive linemen, but last year against Wisconsin, in the phone booth, Western Michigan gave as good as they got against Wisconsin, but not tonight. Western Michigan was losing in the trenches, both sides of the ball. Pass rush, one more thing, Michigan State, with their pressures, with their blitzes, they didn't screw themselves up with some of those blitzes. And when they brought Malik Spencer, he was getting there. He wasn't getting erased. When they came with the safety blitz, he was having an impact on moving the quarterback, like you said. And the sack that Anello Lafayette had, Michigan State showing pressure and ended up dropping, and only brought 3 on that. And he got a strip sack on a 3-man rush. That's when you're winning the cat and mouse game. Now Michigan State does not have an 8-sack man, so Michigan State's going to need to manufacture pass rush with stunts and different looks and pressures and blitzes and looking like you're going to blitz, but you end up just bringing 4. And it's hard to stay creative for 12 weeks with different combinations of that, because it's on tape now, and now Boston College will see what those blitzes were, and they'll be prepared for it. Then Michigan State will probably have some different ones for that one, but you run out at some point. You can't. There's just I don't know. Maybe you can do it over the course of 12 weeks, but it's hard to manufacture for 12 straight weeks. But tonight they didn't screw themselves up. Some of those blitzes looked pretty good. Some of those blitzes. I mean, Michigan State is a well-coached defense. You're seeing that more and more. Same pageness, depth, and assignment sound. And you start throwing some change-ups in there, and then you're getting everything you can out of your talent, which is not great, but it's pretty good.
Linebacker, I think, I'm not saying they're great, but I think Wayne Matthews and Jordan Hall, those are 2 really good linebackers, and they've got some good pieces around them.
I wanted to ask Wayne Matthews about his reaction on that interception.
He's a pretty humble dude, because
he caught it, and then he looked down. Everybody thought that he dropped it. It was his first college interception, and he just sat there and reflected, I guess, for a second.
The angle of that replay was fortunate, because I don't like, again, you were talking about the delay on the tape, so we didn't see it from every angle, but the way they showed on the replay, you couldn't have, if it did come out or did drop down and touch the ground, you couldn't have seen it anyways.
And as far as the coverage goes, he was just dropping into zone coverage, and ball came to him, so good on him. Crowd was good tonight. When I arrived, I was out there tailgating with some people and meeting some people and stuff. By the time I made it around the stadium to go into the game, it was like 12 minutes till kickoff. And that line for the student section was still all the way around the stadium. I'm like, man.
It was filled in pretty good,
but
though.
Then when I got in here, I'm like, it did fill in pretty good. So I don't know if they just hurried everybody in at the last minute, but I'm like, I was thinking they're going to have the same problem as last year with, 2 or 3 or 5,000 people still not in. But they got in, and there was at its max, maybe 95% full. At kickoff, it was maybe 90 because the non-students were still waiting to get in because, everybody rushes to get to the stadium at the same time, and there was a lot of bottlenecking to get in. Secondly, reading on our message board at SpartanMag.com, a lot of fans were complaining about concession lines. I guess it was hard to, it's like 40 minutes to get a hot dog down there in some places. Other people were like, no, it's fine where I was sitting. So that's a mixed bag. They need to get that straightened out for next week.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you live in the Grand Rapids area like I do, it took forever to get down there because the expressway went from 2 lanes to 1 lane. And that wasn't the case when I went to interviews earlier this week. I left my house at 4:30, 4:45, and I got here way later than I usually do for a game, and it wasn't easy to get down there. So be aware of construction. Be aware of all those different type of things that go on. But I thought it was a pretty good experience. I always enjoy the first game, despite it being so late. The fact I'll be up all night working, that kind of sucks. But there was a good feel on campus. It felt like a little bit like fall weather.
Yeah.
Couldn't wear some long sleeves.
Tailgating was
but
great
it was
today.
it was a good vibe. I think there's a lot of excitement in terms of what was going on. And Jonathan Smith was asked about the vibe in the stadium, and he felt like it was a much improved overall game experience for fans. And I think that's the intent. Is it going to be perfect? No. There's going to be some hiccups for sure, but I do feel like it was a good experience, and people were smiling out there and having a good time. And
students were packed in there.
And it was good
Made
to
an
see.
impact on pregame, too. Smith mentioned, man, the students were out there in pregame. I think that was something kind of new to him.
Yeah.
And students were loud, and they were into it. And then, like, midway through the third quarter, half the crowd left,
Yeah.
which is part of college football at a lot of places
Well,
that I don't really understand. The weather's good. You're up by 2.5 touchdowns.
It's called it being a night game, and people having families and that. Some of those people that would leave, and you're up.
15 years ago, they're not leaving.
Probably not, but there is
I don't know what's
a
going
certain
on.
level of fan apathy, and there isn't. Night games were a novelty 15 years ago. They're like maybe once in a while, and you're like, that's awesome. It
I'm
wasn't.
having trouble understanding this, Paul.
Yeah. Well, do you have to pay for a babysitter?
No.
Neither do I. But I think that there's some of that. I don't know. We're night owls.
Curious. No, I'm not. People just left. They had something better to do, I guess. Which I'm having trouble processing that.
I thought it was a good feel in the stadium. And
Yes, in the first half.
It was a good time.
Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. Been watching the VCast from Spartan Stadium with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com. They're 1-0, Paul. 1-0. Talk to you later. Check coverage coming Monday through next week. Boston College coming in next week. We'll see how that one goes.
Maybe one thing we should talk about is the kicking situation.
Right.
I mean, it's going to take me longer to put this thing together, the VCast, but the kicking situation was the one negative, and I don't want to say it was a negative because Eckley worked his butt off today, and overall he had a great game.
Great game.
Punting, he showed a lot of – that delayed punt is risky because it makes you possibly look bad. But there's a lot of times where they had it, just a second longer, the coverage got down there, and Eckley did a heck of a job, not only booming the ball like he usually does as a punter, but he also placed it really well, and that was a point of emphasis for him coming off an all-conference year.
He's a weapon.
Last year.
Coffin corner. They used to be a thing in the 70s, and it went away. Everybody tried to pin it deep inside the 5-yard line in the middle of the field. No, they headed to the sideline like they did in the 70s,
But
1970s.
for this
he
game,
did it.
For this game, you and I were talking about this in the first half about
Do you remember this? You don't remember the 70s, do you?
I was born in 1976. Okay?
Gotcha.
So,
I remember the 70s. Go ahead.
Evel Knievel. I remember Evel Knievel, but the kicking game. We've been talking about it.
Everybody in my neighborhood thought they were Evel Knievel and ended up with a lot of stitches.
Absolutely.
Including mine right here. Go ahead.
Remind me about that after we get off the VCast. I got a great story.
You're not going to give me more stitches, are you?
Maybe.
All
I got
right.
a good story.
I'll
I gave
straighten
my
out.
brother stitches with the Evel Knievel ramp when I was about 2 years old. It was my favorite toy.
There you go.
He tried to take it away. Anyways, the kicking game. We knew it was going to be an issue. And tonight, we keep on hearing that Martin Connington and Tariq Ahmed Basic are getting closer to coming back from groin injuries. I didn't think it was going to be a huge problem against Western Michigan, and it wasn't. Ryan Eckley, who is the punter, kicked in high school. He's got a big leg. He did they used him for a long field goal attempt tonight, missed a 46-yarder. That's another one of those things where you'd like to see the replay, but
You thought he made it?
no, I don't think I didn't know how bad he missed it. I didn't think it was bad, but it's hard to tell
I
from
gotcha.
our angle up in the
Yes.
press box.
Yeah, we're up there like the two old guys in the Muppet Show. We can't see what's going on.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We don't make as many snarky comments.
Do you remember the green-white or the spring game? Because I was coaching baseball and I had to get out here to go pitch batting practice. And I wrote my game story, and I wrote that the guy made the field goal. And then I get a text from you like an hour later, like, dude, the guy missed the field goal.
Yeah.
Up here, I
And you were
couldn't
pissed
tell.
at me about it.
I wasn't mad at you. I was mad at myself. I'm like,
You took
holy
it out on
crap!
me.
I didn't. I'm watching a field goal and I'm writing a story, and I saw the field goal wrong. Go ahead.
But that's a deal where we knew there was going to be a problem. So today what happened is Blake Sislow, Division II transfer from Davenport that did not play last year.
He's never played.
I don't think he's had any stats. He's been on the team for 2 years at Davenport, but
3 years.
never did anything.
Never got in the field.
So he's kicking PATs, which is fine, and that was a good place to start. He did okay tonight on those. There was no botched PAT attempts. That's good. But you got a deal where his leg's not big enough, so if you get outside of 40 yards, you're going to use Ryan Eckley, who's got a big leg, but hasn't kicked field goals since high school. Did pretty well as a field goal kicker in high school.
He almost made that one tonight, and he was mad at himself.
Right. So he thinks he can do it, but as you get into games where it's going to be close, that's not a situation you want to be in where you've got a question mark. This is where it'd be nice to have a guy like Jonathan Kim. It'd be nice to have guys like Tree Comet Basic and Martin Konyndyk back, but presumably when they get back, one of those guys will be the guy, but they've never done anything in a game, and they didn't do anything in training camp.
And those soft tissue injuries.
So don't tell me that, don't tell me that, hey, this guy's back, all of a sudden it's going to be fixed. We don't know what the field goal situation is going to be like. We don't know.
Don't know.
We don't know if it's going to be decent, or we don't know if it's going to be functional. And that's something that's scary, and you wouldn't, I wrote about this in my 3 and Out, but that's something that you really wouldn't like to see. A team that's better, has improved, plays a lot of close games, but loses because they have to take chances on a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 5 instead of kicking a field goal. They got to make a pat, try to force something to happen, leaving points on the field. In these close games, it matters. And I think Michigan State can go from having a good fan experience tonight to being really good if Michigan State can take care of business against Boston College and beat them in Spartan Stadium. Then all of a sudden you're going to have some excitement.
Yeah.
But what would be a real killer for that, any kind of excitement or momentum coming out of this first week, is if you got in a situation where you had close games and you couldn't make a field goal.
Exactly.
That you need to win games.
And they're going to be in close games. And as Harlan Barnett used to say, it doesn't get you till it gets you. And we didn't see Michigan State get a whole lot of work in that area today. Eckley with the 1 attempt. He was mad at himself. And I'll say this. I don't know how good of a kicker he was in high school, probably pretty good. But I go back to the 1990s. Paul Ettinger, when he first played at Michigan State, he was a punter.
Right.
I think Chris Gardner was the kicker. Ettinger was a punter. And then he became the place kicker. And I think, I don't know if he did both. I don't think he continued to do both. But he went from punter to kicker, and not just a kicker that beat Florida in the Citrus Bowl in the last minute, became an NFL kicker. But he began his career as a punter. I realize Eckley is older than that, but I don't close the door on him possibly getting that thing squared away.
He went 12 for 19, I believe, as a senior.
Paul got the numbers.
No, I don't know if that's completely accurate. I know that he had double-digit field goal attempts in high school, and I know that the ones that he missed were primarily over 45 or 50 yards. So he had a leg. He was ranked as a kicker coming out, and he played for a big program. So I think there's some possibility there. And you're seeing that in kickoff. So he brings value there, and I think he did a really good job in kickoff. I was wondering coming into this game who was going to do kickoff and whether that might really hurt Michigan State's operation and special teams, because in the game today, if you can kick it into the end zone, people aren't necessarily going to return it. And if you have a guy that can't kick it into the end zone, then all of a sudden you're going to have some return stuff, and who knows what's going to happen, because Western did have some decent skill guys, and they had some decent skill guys with speed. Didn't really see it a whole lot tonight, but there were some potentially scary dudes out there. I thought Eckley did a really good job with kickoffs, and that's a really good place to start. I thought special teams coverage was outstanding, except for the onside kick.
Yeah. Devin Cromwell with a big hit to open the game, and then
Gash.
He had one, and Cromwell had one, and hitting hard, setting the tone there. Eager guys wanting to go out, hunting dogs wanting to hunt. That's all good stuff. Secondly, Michigan State, in terms of a buttoned-up operation, one of my favorite plays of the night. End of the first quarter, about 15 seconds to go on the game clock, first quarter, 14-13. Michigan State hurries up to the line of scrimmage, and they're not going to run a play. They're doing a hard count to get you to jump off because the play clock's not going to go off. So Michigan State was able to, with a verbal cue, go straight to a specialized play in case for the end of the quarter, and it was 3rd and 2. Got him to jump offside, free first down. And not only for offside, went deep on a free play, incomplete. But that was all.
There should have been a PI on that.
But in terms of like a well-coached team, to clock, awareness, alert, all right, now we're doing mustard or whatever they call it. Yeah. I don't know what they call it. But they were into it and did it, and it worked. I thought that was solid. Yeah. It's one of my favorite plays of the night, Paul, in terms of that's new. And haven't seen Michigan State do something like that. That was pretty cool. All right, now we're going to wrap it up. For Paul Konyndyk, Jim Comparoni, been watching the VCast from Spartan Stadium with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com.